Okay, our next video is about the different practices that we have here at the offices. Basically, over time, we've come up with several different issues that we consider different practice matters. We want to go through each one of those so you can have an understanding what you need to be doing. Now, most of these practices are based on our time billers. For instance, it's going to be mainly the attorneys, the paralegals that are going to be directly affected, but everybody needs to understand these basics. The first one we're going to talk about is time entries. Now, understand that time entries become the lifeblood of what we do. In order to do any billing with clients, in order to come up with any answers, anything that clients need, it needs to be reflected through a time entry. And these time entries are used obviously for billing purposes, but it's also an update for all work performed, a defense against any client that questions any of the work that we've been doing. It's a roadmap for anybody who's later following up on the case or trying to come up with information about the case, or if you're out for a significant period of time, just so we know what to go on to and what to do. It's documentation that we can later use for statistics, and of course, it's also used in employee reviews. Now, when you're doing a time entry, a couple of things you need to remember. First of all, it needs to be drafted in present tense. It should read clear, that exactly what is done, and you really need to be able to answer the question of what was done, when it was done, where it was done, how it was done, and occasionally why it was done. You need to go through this on a daily basis. It needs to be done as you act. Some of our attorneys keep a legal pad when they're away from their computers or their phones, just to keep up to date on what's going on. I like to look at my days through the blue sheets. On Amicus, when you go down, you can look at your time entries. It will show it on the blue sheet. And at the very top on Amicus, on that blue sheet, you'll see a little button. It looks like a butler. That's your time entry assistant. It looks back at your calendar, lets you look at anything that you've had on that calendar, and automatically creates a time billing for that, and it allows you to use that calendar. Make sure you haven't missed any time entries. All the more reason why your calendar is so important. The next thing is the to-dos or task. Unfortunately, Amicus calls them both, but clearly that is the way we communicate back and forth to each other. I strongly recommend you using tasks and to-dos anytime you start your day. Basically, when I crank up my computer, first thing I'm going to do is pull up my email. My email, I want to directly turn each one of those emails into a task, so my response can be done accordingly. Instead of just answering my email as it comes in, meaning that the person who emailed you last would be the first one to get work done, we like to set it up as a task. Take that email, turn it into a task, delete the email, then you can move on and deal with the email itself. You should constantly be setting to-dos for yourself, for your paralegal, if you're a paralegal, for your attorney, because every file, every case needs to have a task on it at all time. I encourage you to have weekly case reviews where at least yourself you're going through all of your active cases, and probably there with your paralegal. And at those points you're assigning tasks. If you want to get something done immediately, I encourage you to use the urgent status on the task. Otherwise, let the person, whoever you're sending that task to do, deal with whatever priority they need to do. Be precise when you're drafting it to do. Use the main note as possible, because when later on that task becomes a time entry, you can just click at the bottom of making a time entry when it's done. That way it's resolved. And when that to-do is completed, the title, main note, show up in that time entry and resolves it. The next practice that I think that you need to work on for here is the consult. And the consult is so important. The only way to really make your bonuses is to focus on bringing in new clients, and that means making good consults. Our consults are broken down into three parts. First of all, a time just to listen. When you make that appointment, spend some time just listening to them. I like to spend at least 10 minutes just letting them talk, trying to interrupt as little as possible. Now, they don't know what's a legal issue versus just something they want to tell you. It's okay. During that time period, I want to take at least 10 minutes of that time that I'm listening to them. The second part is 10 minutes of just asking specific questions. During this time, I normally pull up my amicus. If it's a family law case, I'm filling out the custom pages, trying to get as much information as possible at that time. If during that time, I try to break down the basics just to try to make sure I've got the very most important parts of the case so I can go forward with the final part, and that is the final 10 minutes, which is talking about our fee contract. Our fee contracts, and I'm going to talk about those in just a moment, is an opportunity during that consult to get them and introduce them into the firm. Move on to our next practice, which is the fee contract. The fee contract, we want to first of all set up what kind of fee contract we want to set them with. The trust fee agreement is 99% of the time what that answer is going to be. You want to determine what amount that they've got in trust. A setup fee, generally we charge $300 for that. That setup fee takes care of all of the copies, all of the computers, the equipment, all those things. Rather than nickel and diming the client, we take that $300 up front. You set an attorney hourly fee. At that time, your hourly fee will already be set for you, and a minimum in trust to replenish. Generally speaking, we like to use the number of $1,500. That's the kind of number that I feel like that people have for emergency purposes. That's about the price of appliances, down payments for vehicles, things like that, large repairs for their vehicles. That amount is something that almost every person can come up with. Put the $1,500, $300 is a setup fee, and then ask for them to keep $1,000 in trust. That gives you a basic idea. Obviously, there's cases that you're going to want to have more than that, but the trust fee agreement is the setup. That trust fee agreement, when you set up that minimum, every week, Cindy will be sending out a bill. That bill will go to the client, and it will tell them how much money it was spent during the past week, and how much money they need to replenish their trust account for. There are other kind of fee agreements. There's contingency fee agreements. We do those for personal injury cases. Estate administration agreement, which is taking the money directly out of an estate, or some kind of hybrid where we're asking for some money, but there's a contingency amount at the end. The next practice to talk about is the post-consult letter. I feel like it is important, vital, that when that person walks out of the office that they be sent a copy of the fee contract. We like to do that in email form, so they're getting that immediately. And also in our generated document, you can find under fee contracts a cover letter. That cover letter should go out. Basically, you can tweak that, talk about their case, and send a nice cover letter, which then becomes obviously an email with the attachment of a trust fee agreement. Or in some occasions, of course, you'll be sending that as a regular letter. If the client is not someone who we want, for whatever reason, they don't qualify, there's some issue, the statute of limitations is about to run, we don't feel like we're ready to handle their case, you want to send an immediate non-engagement letter. I like those sent by email, and I also like those sent by letter. I want something to clarify. We don't represent this person. We have no attorney-client relationship. They can move on to another case. Protects us for ethical purposes. We also send something called a no-contact letter. That's when, for whatever reason, we haven't heard contact back with them. We want to continue an opportunity to retain them. Send them an email. It's another generated document where you can get in there and get a little bit more specific. But we like to consider every case that comes through that is not a non-engage as one that we can make money for the firm, and you can bring that person in as a client. Now, of course, once we go through those processes, we'll talk a little bit more about how we handle the client as they become a member of the firm. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out to go through this document, review this information that makes a part of you as an employee, part of our team here at King Law. I hope this video helps. I look forward to seeing you in other videos.